Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. I'm back. I might shift around a little bit if you watched my last video because of my back. But other than that, I'm back. I have a story for you I've been working on for a little while. Really quickly, before I start, I hope you're all okay out there and you're all keeping safe and stuff. Still British summer. We're there. It's just shocking at the minute. Last year I had a tan. Look, this colour here had a tan. And this year it's freezing, it's cold and it's wet. So typical British summer on its way. So I hope you're all okay out there. And just before I start, I was so nervous to do this story, and I'll tell you why. A couple of days ago, I had a comment on one of my very, very early stories. I think it was my second story I'd done. It was the Tracy Andrews story. And admittedly, you know, it was an old camera. I was very, very nervous. It was 2 years ago. And, you know, this guy, I think it was a guy, just annihilated me. Absolutely annihilated me. You know, said he couldn't understand me, my accent's terrible, you know, the story was terrible. I mean, he went in and I replied, and, you know, I was very polite, and I just said, you know, it's not for everybody, but thanks for your comment. And I thought that was the end of it. Anyway, last week, if you did see it, I'd put up just a very quick video just to explain why I hadn't been on, and he went on there and he was like, you're so unprofessional, no one's interested in that, you know, making money off people's misery. And he's like, wow, one, you obviously have no idea how the monetization works on YouTube, because I don't earn anything and I don't do it for that. I have a genuine interest in true crime. Then I was told that I have obviously no background in criminology. I've never said I did. You know, it's just an interest. I try and get my facts right. You know, I spend quite a while on each story just to make sure that, you know, I'm trying to include everything I can. Try not to make the videos too long. Yeah, and this guy just genuinely wasn't happy with me at all. So I've got to admit, I was a little bit nervous about doing it, because I was like, why do people out there can they not understand me? And then I thought, you know what, let's have a look. And yeah, no information, no profile picture, no subscribers. And I just thought, oh my God, I've got a troll. I've made it. I've got a troll. Now, I did have one when I very first started who made some really insulting comments about my appearance, which was fine. But this one kind of got me, because it wasn't based on my appearance, it was more what I'm doing. I just thought, oh, can people not understand me? But yeah, I mean, obviously you can, because you reply and stuff. But yes, I was a little bit nervous about coming on. And then I thought, no, you're not going to stop me, because I enjoy doing the stories. Everyone's 99% of the time very kind in their comments. And yeah, I am going to do this story for you this evening. Now, this one, really difficult story. It is about children, which obviously are very hard to do, very hard to listen to, admittedly. So if it's too much for you when it is children, I completely understand. But it's the story of Timothy Ray Jones Jr. Now, normally I have said that I like to put the victim's name as the title to the stories, but this one's a little bit harder to do that, because there's several victims in this story. So how I've done it is, when it's the victim, I say it's so-and-so story. When it's the perpetrator, I say the story of. I don't know if that makes any difference to you, but somehow mentally it makes a difference to me. So, the story of Timothy Ray Jones Jr. If you do know about this, oh, it's just horrific. There's a lot of information, so I'm going to be back and forth with it, but I just want to make sure I get everything to you. And where I got a lot of this from was the trial itself. You know, some of the platforms online, but the majority was the trial. Now, Timothy Ray Jones Jr., he met a lad. Don't know a lot about his history, and to be honest, I don't want to. Not interested. So what I will say, he met a lady by the name of Amber Kaiser. He was 24, she was 19 at the time. And basically, between the two of them, well, they both had, she had 8 pregnancies. 5 children were born, 2 miscarriages, and 1 stillborn little girl. So there was actually 8 children altogether that she was pregnant for, but like I say, 5 children that were alive. Now, those children was Mira, who's 8, the eldest girl, beautiful looking girl. Then you had, it's Elias, but they called him Eli. He was 7. Then you had Nathan. It's kind of looks like Nathan, but it's not. It's Nathan. He was 6. Gabriel was 2. And then you had a little girl. Now, in the trial, she's called Elaine, and she's 1. But I don't know if Elaine's the nickname, because when you look at other sources online, she's called Abigail. So you do hear the prosecutor at times during the trial say Elaine, known as Abigail. Now, she's the baby, she's 1. So all these kids are just the cutest children, they genuinely are. But their parents, Timothy and Amber, unfortunately, they just don't get on. There's a lot of bickering, there's a lot of fighting, and eventually they split up. Now, this is when Timothy's 32 and Amber is 27. It wasn't what do you call it? When a split up goes well. It wasn't that. It was rumoured that she was seeing a 17-year-old lad, which she swears she wasn't. She said he was 24 at the time. Then it's Timothy was accusing her of that, and then it turns out he was actually seeing someone. So it's all very, very messy. Anyway, originally Amber had the 5 children, but because she wasn't working and Timothy was, he cut her off. So she didn't have a lot of money. She couldn't afford to pay, the electric in the home. There wasn't a lot of food for the kids. And in her, she said she thought she was doing the best thing, and she handed custody of the 5 children, which was through the court split. It was supposed to be 50-50, but because she wasn't working, she didn't have a lot of money, she gave the custody to him full time. I mean, I think she got to see them at weekends and stuff, but yeah, basically she handed them over to him, believing that they would have a better life with him. Now, she does talk about in the trial a time when they're all in the car, whilst claiming that Timothy did have a quick temper, and she says they were in the car, they were bickering, Timothy and Amber, the kids are in the back, and he just lost his temper and said, should we play chicken? And he moves the car over to in America, I think we would move it to the right, so I think you'd move it to the left to move on to the other side of the road, I think. And there was a big truck coming towards them. And what struck me is when she's telling this story, now she's telling this on the stand in court, she says it was going to hit me. Now, if a truck's coming at you, even if he's kind of straddled the line, well, your kids are in the back. But it was like, oh, he's going to hit me. You'll notice as I'm telling you this, like, I haven't got a lot of time for this, Mum. And you'll see why. So she didn't know he had a temper, but she felt that he wouldn't take it out on the kids, and handed over custody to him. Now, while Timothy's got these kids, he does work, and I think he works like 12-hour days. And in the summer of 2014, now this is in Lexington, South Carolina, in America, and in the summer of 2014, he hires a babysitter called Joy Lorick. Now, again, you hear this lady speaking, and the way she speaks about these 5 children, you could see that she doted on them, like all 5. You know, she knew aspects of all 5's personalities, even though she wasn't their a babysitter for long. I was more so a childminder because it was like 12-hour days, long days. But when she was talking about them and asked about the home, she says the home was really dirty. It was a really dirty house. Every day she'd go around there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and there'd just be dishes, there'd be clothes everywhere. You do see pictures of the house like trailer. There was roaches. It just wasn't a nice place for the kids. The neighbours said that the kids would be running around in the winter, you know, when it was cold, in just nappies that'd be hanging off, you know, the younger 2 that'd just be hanging off them. You know, just not very well kept kids, very happy kids, but always seemed to be hungry. So when Joy started looking after them, what she noticed was all she had to feed them every single day was oatmeal. That's all she could give them. That's all that was there for her to feed them. Now, I took from this that Joy herself didn't have a lot of money. You know, she didn't strike me that she was... how she struck me was that if she'd have had money herself, she would have fed them something else. You know, her concern was those children. But she says all she could give them all day long was oatmeal. That was it. But she had a really nice relationship with them. But what she noticed was there was a lot of, if she gave them extra oatmeal not long before Timothy was due home from work, you know, the older kids would be like, don't tell Dad, because he won't feed us when he gets home, if you tell him that we've eaten now. You know, those kind of things. Quite. She says that she didn't think they were scared of their dad, but there was a nervousness about him. There was another time where Mira, the eldest daughter, she was at a friend's, and as little girls do, they were painting nails. And when she realised that the nail varnish wasn't just coming off, she started to panic. She really panicked. And Timothy walked in and just looked and said, you know better. She wasn't allowed to wear dresses. She wasn't allowed to wear skirts. You know, he was quite a strict dad, and his form of punishment for the children was physical exercise. And Joy says that at one point, while Timothy was there, the one evening, he goes, go and show Joy. And I think it was Mira or Eli come walking in with a bed post. And she's like, what do you have to do with that? And they had to do squats with this big, thick, like, bed leg or post. And these kids are 1, 2, 6, 7 and 8. And this is the kind of physical exercises you used to make them do for punishment. Which she obviously didn't agree with, but he made it clear they're my kids. So Joy would try and say something, but in no uncertain terms, he says, I know you're looking after them, but they're my children. I will discipline them how I see fit. It was very much that kind of relationship. Now, she did go to Myrtle Beach with them. And this was, again, like I say, in the summer of 2014. I think this was in the June or the July. She went to Myrtle Beach with them, and there is a video of them. And she said it was quite odd because he was quite far out in the water and he was calling the kids to come in, like further in the water, which I found, because of what I know, I found that a little bit odd. She said that they had a good time, but on the way back the kids were quite loud and rambunctious. They were quite wound up on the way back, and he pulled over and he was about to give them a whooping, as he called it, and she asked him not to. And although he didn't, again there was that tone that, okay, but these are my children. So, although she felt like she'd won that little battle, she was aware that, if he wanted to, he would give them a hiding, basically, if he needed to. They also went to Disney, and they stayed in a hotel. I don't know if it was for show, because she made it clear that even going to Disney and Myrtle Beach, these kids, they weren't eating very well. There was receipts of them pulling into, I think it was, what's that chicken place? ChickfilA, is it? Pulling in there, and she says, like, he got them a small meal, and then there was like a small pizza. So I don't know if this was for show, say, look where I'm taking my kids, but I'm actually not going to spend any money to feed them while we're there. It was all a bit odd. Well, Joy, as much as she loved these kids, she had a couple of issues herself at home. And the one day she got home, and she had to nip out for something. She took her sister with her, and she'd noticed a bit of an atmosphere in her own home. She lived with her dad and her stepmom. And when she asked her sister what the issue was, she was like, oh, well, they were saying, you're borrowing the car. So the car wasn't her own, it was the dad and stepmom. I think the stepmom's, but you're not putting fuel in it. And on the stand, she was like, I did put fuel in it, but just not when they wanted me to. Anyway, it was obviously getting a little bit awkward with her borrowing the car. And she decided to give them the car back, which meant that she didn't have the transportation to childmind for Timothy anymore, for the children. So she had to leave. She had to leave the position. Now, at the beginning of August, so this was near the end of July, at the beginning of August, because she had a really uneasy feeling, Joy did, and she phoned. Now, I know there's lots of different names within America for the social services. There's DCFS, I think there's a couple more. This, apparently, in South Carolina, DSS, I believe, that's what I heard them called. But she called them, put her worries to them, just basically saying, I don't think the kids are fed, their house is really dirty, I believe it goes a bit hard on them. But she knew nothing had happened. But it said that on August the 7th, someone from DSS did go out to the trailer, but deemed that there was nothing wrong. Everything was okay. Trailer was fine. So what was she imagining? What she's seen, or did Timothy, clean up really quick? I don't know. I don't know what they saw or didn't see that she did see. I'm not too sure how that worked, but they came away quite happy. The kids were fine. The kids were healthy. you know, it didn't make sense. So now we're coming up to Thursday, August the 28th, 2014. Now Tim picks the kids up from school. There are videos, like CCTV of him picking up the kids, and you can actually hear Mira behind him saying, "Daddy, are you okay now?" But anyway, that's the video of him picking them up from school. I believe that's the last footage and the last time anyone saw these children. And when he gets back, Natan, now it seems Natan, you know, in these stories, I've done quite a few, even with the Gabriel Fernandez case, we know there's a thing where if there's a few children, there's always one that's called the scapegoat in these stories, where for some reason all of the family's problems get put on one child. They're just aimed at one child, and everything that can possibly be wrong in the parents' lives is because of this child. And it seems that Natan, who was the 6-year-old, he was the middle child, seems like he got the brunt of a lot of things that were going on in the house. Now, when Amber talks about Natan, she says he was quite a feisty little boy. He was quite honest. She said he was the type that if he's seen like a spot on your face, to be like, "Can you burst that? It doesn't look very nice." You know, just quite a blunt child. Maybe Timothy didn't like that. I don't know. I find that quite funny. I love honest, straightforward children. I think that I love that. Maybe Timothy didn't. So when he gets home, he said that it looked like the outlets, so the plugs, had been messed with, and in his mind it was Natan that had done something to the outlets. And he says he kept asking him and asking him, and Natan wasn't bending. He wasn't telling him what he'd done to the outlets. So then he starts giving him this physical training. He gets him doing squats, you know, push-ups, and he keeps it. This child's 6, and he keeps on it for an hour. Now, this is what we have been told by Timothy Ray Jones, and he's the only person that we can hear an account from. So whether this was the true course of events, we don't know. But this is what he said. He said he kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing him, and for some reason Natan wouldn't own up to messing with these outlets. And in his mind, this is Timothy, a 32-year-old grown man, to a 6-year-old child. Now, he said he'd swatted him, as he called it, gave him all these exercises for an hour, and in his mind, them outlets were set up for him to hurt him. It was like a conspiracy against him, and he was getting angrier and angrier and angrier because Natan wouldn't tell him what he'd been doing to the outlets. Now, Natan loved Toy Story, and he loved Woody. It was his favourite character. Now, he had a Woody doll, and he absolutely loved that doll, and Timothy ripped it apart. Ripped the head, ripped it apart. Which you can imagine for a 6-year-old when that's their favourite character, their favourite toy. It's so upsetting because you just think you're a grown man and you've just destroyed what he loved. I'm so sorry. That part really got me. It genuinely did. So, excuse me. So he does all of that, and Natan, he's just not owning up to his crime. And in the end, he sends him to bed. So a little bit later, he goes in. This is Timothy's version. He goes in to Nathan's room, and Nathan's passed away. He says maybe he worked him too hard. He doesn't know, but he sticks by it, and he said Nathan was dead when he walked in that room. He said he didn't touch him. He didn't physically kill him or mean to, but he felt maybe he'd overworked him. So his answer to that isn't to try and get help, to phone an ambulance, to, phone the police. His answer to that was, well, in his mind, he had voices going around in his head saying, oh, they're going to get, that's not what, that's a fact. You're done. You've just worked your kid to death. Of course. They're not voices in your head. That's a fact of what's about to happen. But he says the voices then told him he needed to get rid of the other 4. So he strangles Mira and Eli with his bare hands. And he says that Eli, when it was happening, said, take me with you, Dad. Because Eli would have already seen that Nathan's dead and that Mira's just been murdered. So he said, take me with you, Dad. Just before his dad strangled him. And then Gabriel and Abigail, because apparently his hands were too big, he used his belt to strangle them. And Gabriel says, I love you, Dad, just before he killed him. Whoa, God, this. Oh, and just, when you hear him tell the story, because I've watched listened to the confession. I've seen it and listened to it, and just so matter of fact. And in the trial, when it's replayed, he only cries when the reference is about himself. Those particular parts that I'm telling you, he says, when he's telling the detective what Eli and Gabriel said, there was no reaction in the court, just deadpan, nothing. But then when it was referencing himself with the voices, he was crying like a baby then. It's just absolutely sickening. So then he loads them into his truck, all 5 children, and he just starts driving. And he had written down notes of what he was going to do, possibly, to get away with this. And he thought of dismembering them, burning them, boiling them, just dumping them. And all of this was written down. Now, on Wednesday, the 3rd of September, now that was Thursday, August 28th. We're now jumping to Wednesday, the 3rd of September. 6 days later, and those 5 children those 5 children's bodies have been in that truck for 6 days. And he just says, he was just throwing bleach around. Now, you do see the truck, and look, the floor and all the seating's just got white everywhere where he's been throwing bleach over everything to get rid of the smell, he said. Air fresheners. It's just absolutely sickening. His story's horrific. And on Wednesday, the 3rd of September 2014, he goes to Walmart and he buys a handsaw, a dust mask, goggles, a disc saw, On Thursday, the 4th of September 2014, he buys the trash bags, bin bags, because obviously he forgot those. On Friday, September the 5th, 2014, he's actually pulled over by a just a traffic police. I think call him a traffic cop, who didn't actually notice what was going on, and Amber reported the kids missing on the 3rd. So she reported the kids missing when he went to Walmart to buy all things. Sorry about this. Sorry, I'm looking down. I just want to make sure I get all the dates because there's a lot of dates. Now, on Saturday, the 6th of September 2014, so this is now Thursday. This is 9 days. Nine days after he's murdered his children. And he tries to dismember Nathan. Goes straight to him. But he says he can't do it. He says he couldn't follow through. He went for his leg. And he couldn't do it. So he wraps them all in bin bags and carries them a couple at a time into a wooded area. And this was in Riley, Mississippi. And just disposes them of them in a wooded area in garbage bags. Now, he's picked up later on that day, because don't forget Amber's reported them missing. They're looking out for him. No one's seen these kids. Obviously they haven't been at school. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. That's 5 kids that no one's seen. So on the same day, just a few hours later, he's arrested at a checkpoint in Riley, Mississippi. And that's the confession you hear when he's brought in. And when asked, can you take us to where the kids are? He's like, they might still be there, I'm not sure. This is only later on that day. But the kids, they're found on, it says Monday/Tuesday, the 11th/12th of September 2014. So that's 12 days. 12 days after he murdered them. And then on Thursday, September the 11th, 2014, which is obviously 2 weeks since the kids had been murdered, Tim's returned to Lexington County, South Carolina. The kids' bodies were found in Alabama. Sorry, the 3 states involved. I think it's states. Is it states or city? I'm so sorry if you're watching in America and you're like, oh my God, do you not? But I'm probably being really dippy, but it's Mississippi, Alabama, and South Carolina. And he's returned to Lexington County, South Carolina. Now, Tim himself was still blaming Nathan for the whole thing. He believes that everything, all of this, for the past 2 weeks, right back to the original night on Thursday, August the 28th, all Nathan's fault. And Nathan, it was a conspiracy to hurt him. His 6-year-old son, he wanted to blame for everything that had happened. So he thinks the outlets are meant for him. He thought they were conspiring. Said it was the voices that had caused it. And when they asked, have you got any have you been diagnosed with any mental illness? He was like, no, but at college they called me the crazy white guy. Brilliant. Okay, must be it then. Now on the 13th of June 2019, so it's 5 years later. 5 years, a long time, I don't know whether they were getting I don't know whether they're getting everything together. I'm not too sure, but 13th of June 2019, he'd been found guilty, and he was given the death sentence. Now, Timothy is now at Broad River Correctional Institute. Now, an appeal was submitted and is in the hands of the South Carolina Supreme Court, and that was as of the 15th of June 2020. I can't find anything more, so I'm presuming it's still sat with them, obviously because of COVID and everything else, but him himself's at Broad River Correctional Institute. What I do want to mention, the jury, because there's a couple of jury members that do talk in this, some of the things I've watched, and your heart breaks for them because they got to see that Woody doll, from Toy Story. It affected them all so much, which, how could it not? I just want to mention that they have got their own little WhatsApp group and they're still in touch, and they call themselves the Team 18. And they've all stayed in touch to support each other through it. And I think you would need that, because who else would understand what you'd been through? Being a juror, to be a juror in that case, it'd be life changing, and one of the jurors said when he got home he had children, similar ages to the older children, I think, and he said obviously he just hugged them that bit tighter, and it broke his heart. It it affected so many people. This story did. Now I just want to mention, I've mentioned Timothy a lot, and when I talk about these stories, I always say that the person who did it is the person to blame, and the only person that should be get a full brunt, and he's on death row. Hopefully that will be upheld. I don't see how it can't be. But the mum, now I'll probably have people coming at me because a lot of sympathy does tend to go to the mums in situations like this, but to watch her on the stand, and when she was asked, do you want him to get the death penalty, she's like, no. Now I know we haven't got that option here, we haven't, and I know it divides a lot of America, so I know it's not something that exists in all states. It's been banned in some states. 5 children, your 5 children, and you want him saved. You want him spared. I mean, she justified it in, the kids loved him. That'd make it worse. She says, I'd love to rip his face off, the mama bear in me. And I just felt my blood boiling. Mama bear? Mama bear? But you don't think he should pay in the highest way that's possible? The jury's gone through all that, and you're saying, don't give him the death penalty, please. They've had to sit through all that. Your kids have been murdered and carried around in the back of a car for 12 days and then discarded in rubbish bags, and you're concerned for this man. And she kind of giggled through her testimony, and the only time I actually seen any sort of emotion and sort of madness in her is when she was talking that he had a girlfriend. You've seen some sort of reaction out of her then. It was a lot of eyes, a lot of me. And, you know, by all means, have a look. You know, there's an awful lot online about this story, but I know she hadn't, like I say, Timothy Jones Jr., 100%. We know who's to blame. We know who the disgusting animal is. But to see their mum, you know, and she wouldn't have known, you know, everyone said, you know, would she have known? Because she said he went to plough them into a truck. I don't know. I just think, Mama Bear, you calling yourself Mama Bear? And you're trying to get this man's life spared? Why? I mean, I don't know if the prosecutor was taken back as well by her response, but I certainly was. And to say it's because the kids love their dad, that would make me even angrier, you know. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about her, but I'm absolutely, you know, 100% sure that he got the right sentence, and I really hope it's upheld. I genuinely do. I'll keep an eye on the story, and I'll obviously update you if I hear anything else. But yeah, that was the story of Timothy Ray Jones Jr. and his beautiful children, Mira, Eli, Nathan, Gabriel, and Abigail / Elaine. I'm not sure which name's the nickname, because both names were used for the little madam, but their photos are online. They're cute children, and just a heartbreaking story. It genuinely is. But yeah, I don't know how to end it. It's just so sad. But thank you for sticking around. I know it's been a longer one, but there was a lot of information, and I still haven't got everything out to you, but I've got all the dates and everything important to you. And if you do want to look online, you know, there's so much on there. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad to be back with you all. Thank you to my new subscribers. Thank you to my old ones for not leaving me, even though that gentleman told me he'd have left a long time ago. Thanks. You know, any comments, please pop them in. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you all again soon. Take care. Thank you.